Most of us probably had some kind of sex ed in school. But what if that whole way of teaching it is just, well, fundamentally broken? So today, we're going to dig into why that old model is failing and what a more comprehensive and, let's be honest, a more real approach to sex education could actually look like.
All right, let's just start with it. It's a word that's designed to grab your attention, right? It's a fundamental part of being human. I mean, we are all living proof of it.
And got your attention? Good, because the real question isn't about the word itself. It's about where we get our information about it. See, we're all proof that sex happens, but what we actually know about it, that's a whole other story.
And that right there, that's the heart of the problem. So much of what we think we know comes from, let's be honest, pretty questionable places, and not just rumors on the playground. This creates this huge knowledge gap that school is supposed to fill, but in way too many cases, it's just not getting the job done.
Okay, so to really get a handle on just how big this problem is, let's look at the numbers. The data, especially from the United States, paints a pretty revealing picture of where we're at with sex ed right now. So what's with this number? Well, believe it or not, as of 2022, that's how many U.S. states even required schools to teach any kind of sex ed. That's barely over half. For a huge number of students, it's not even guaranteed to be on the schedule.
But wait, it gets even crazier. Out of those 29 states that say, yes, you have to teach sex ed, fewer than half of them actually require that information to be medically accurate. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. The class might be mandatory, but the facts, not so much.
And look, even when sex ed is on the schedule, what's actually being taught, or more importantly, what's not being taught, is a whole other story. Less than half of states require talking about contraception, and for LGBTQ+ people, a lot of programs just pretend they don't exist, or even worse, are actively discriminatory. Okay, so we've seen the data. Now let's get personal. Let's move from the statistics to see how this all adds up in a real person's experience. The numbers are one thing, but the human side of this, that's where it really hits you.
This quote here, it's from Sean Boodram, the host of the Crash Course series, and it's hilarious but also so telling. I mean, can you even imagine being told that? When that's the expert advice you're getting, it's not just unhelpful, it's completely baffling.
And this next quote, wow. It just nails the feeling that so many of us have about our sex ed experience. What a powerful way to put it. It captures not just the missing information, but that feeling of boredom and total disconnect from real life. It fails on pretty much every single level.
All right, so the problem is pretty clear, right? It's incomplete, it's often wrong, and it's just dull. So let's flip this around and look at a solution. What does a totally different kind of sex education actually look like?
And this really gets to the core of it. The whole point isn't just to, get a new textbook. It's about a total shift in how we even think about it. You move away from that dry, impersonal vibe, and you move towards something that's about real talk, answering actual questions people have.
Okay, so real talk sounds great, but what does that actually mean? What does it look like when you go beyond that old, boring curriculum? Let's take a peek.
All right, first things first. Of course, the fundamentals are still there. You can't have good sex ed without covering the biological basics, the anatomy, STIs, pregnancy. You've got to have those pillars in place. Okay, but this is where things get really interesting. This new approach dives right into the topics that are usually ignored. We're talking about pleasure, about orgasms, the absolute non-negotiable importance of consent, and the real-world biology that goes way beyond a simple diagram, like, actually knowing where the clitoris is.
And this, right here, this is the real game changer. This isn't just a biology class anymore. A truly meaningful education has to admit that our bodies, our relationships, they don't just exist in some textbook. They're shaped by our society, our culture, even our politics.
And once you open that door, you get to ask much bigger, more interesting questions. Questions like these, that go way past the mechanics and get into science, history, and why our society is the way it is. They make you think critically about the world around you. And that brings us to this final question. One that really challenges something a lot of us just, took as a given. Is virginity actually a biological thing, or is it something society just made up? It's questions like this one that show the true purpose of a new kind of sex ed. It's not just about giving us information, it's about making us think.